This is the Simpit. I'm your host, Sean Cole, and today I am very excited about what we get to do. We get to check out the new Vision GS steering wheel by Moza Racing. So we spied this from Sim Expo. It wasn't even in use or lit up. It was just sitting there in sort of a prototype function. And here we have it in the studio, and we get to plug it in and see it in all of its glory. So I'm very excited about that because this is a very innovative wheel. It has some firsts in sim racing that we're going to talk about that make it very special, and that might justify the extremely high price, at least high when considering it to the Moza lineup, $750. So this is the flagship steering wheel. This is the most expensive steering wheel that we've seen from Moza yet. And when we talk about its features, I think it's going to be comparable to some steering wheels that are well over $1,000. So let's talk about everything you get for $750. Right off the bat, we've got these 4 buttons over here and 4 over here. They are backlit programmable buttons. So any color under the sun you want, you can make them light up in those colors, and you can adjust their brightness. And you might be thinking, that's 8 buttons, right? 4 and 4, that's 8 buttons. That's not enough, Sean. You're right. They should put more buttons. Well, what if we hid 2 more buttons on the back? There are little secret buttons back there that you can activate with your pinky or your ring finger. It's something I've wanted to see on a steering wheel for a very long time, and Moza went ahead and did it, and that is really exciting. So 10 total buttons, with the front ones all being programmable in color. In addition to that, we have 3 encoders. So your traditional encoders going left and right. Got a good click on each one, and they're in a really good position there in the bottom, 1, 2, 3 in a row like that. We've got a little mini joystick over here and a little mini D-pad over there. And then 2 more additional encoders right here in the thumb position, which are really comfortable, easy to use, and have a really strong click for those. We've got this microfiber covering. So it's not real leather, but it's soft enough that you would think it is. But since it's microfiber, it won't wear out whether you're using bare hands or in gloves, so it'll last a long time, and that's nice. And we're looking at 310 millimeters left to right, and obviously this butterfly futuristic design. Now, part of that futuristic design is this forged carbon fiber front plate that has all of this incredible shape to it, this very strong bezel, real artistic design, giving that futuristic look, and that all circulates that 2.85-inch color display in the center that we're going to talk about a lot in this review. So on the back, when we turn it around, we're looking at aluminum body on the back plate, aluminum shifter paddles, and these top ones are magnetic with forged carbon fiber paddles. And then we have our lower floppy paddles as well, all really sturdy construction, well made, and that leads into that aluminum NRG style quick release that Moza uses on all of theirs, making it fit on any of the Moza bases. Integrated into this top rim, we've got a 10-digit LED strip. These colors are also programmable to any color combination that you could possibly want, and it's all easily done in the Moza software. So those are the features that you would expect in a lot of wheels at this price point. In this case, we're talking about a wheel that also includes a display, but this wheel display is so unique. First of all, it's round. When have you seen a round display? I mean, that is just super cool. On top of that, it's touch screen. You have a bunch of displays to choose from, and you can just flip through them with your finger at the greatest of ease. And then on top of that, it's gyroscopic controlled. So when you spin the wheel, the display spins to always keep it up and down no matter what position the wheel is in. So revolutionary, and something that I'm very, very excited to see how it works in the car out on track. So the next thing I think that we need to do is get this mounted to our rig. We'll talk about the installation process, and then we'll get down to driving. To get this wheel operational, you will need the Moza Pit House software. You will also need to update that software, confirm the current firmware, and authorize the wheel within the Pit House software. From there, things should just automatically run, but there are a lot of adjustments that you can make to the steering wheel that we'll talk about a little later. Let's get down to some driving. When it comes down to driving with the Vision GS steering wheel, I think I'm going to break things into a couple different sections. Let's start off with all the functional aspects that you'd expect from a steering wheel. So starting with the comfort, I talked about the design of the wheel shape, the rim shape itself. It is a butterfly design, 310 millimeters across, and it has what I like to call sort of a blade or a flattened edge. So when you're here at the hand positions at 9 and 3, It's a little bit wider here and a little narrower here. So there is a little bit of a ridge or an edge on the front and back. So if you grip it really tightly, you will feel that. But it really makes it ease into your palms really nicely. And with the leather being so soft and being so nicely stitched and so nicely integrated into the center spoke, it makes for a very, very comfortable wheel in your hands. Next up would be talking about like the construction and the strength. I mean, this is a really rigid wheel. It's very strong. A combination of that aluminum on the back, that forged carbon front plate makes it very, very rigid. There's almost no flex whatsoever. I can't say zero flex. There's always flex in something. But you're going to probably get more flex out of your wheel mount than you will the rim itself. I already talked about the way the leather integrates into the center spoke, but it's also that LED display and how nicely integrated it is into the rim and gives an appearance of a very, very high-end, maybe even luxury car type design. Now the buttons on this wheel, I would say they're actually pretty high strength buttons. I mean, the click is very significant. They are short throw, and you hear and feel that click very noticeably with any and every button press. That's true on the front 8 buttons with their backlit designs. I have them all lit up for the functions. I didn't go for style on my personal choice. I actually went for what I think is a functional design. So the buttons are color-coded based on what they do into groupings, making it a lot easier for me to remember what they do in game. And again, those buttons on the back, they're in a position that there is no way to accidentally hit them. You actually have to kind of locate them. So I actually find them to be great for things like a pause function or to exit the vehicle. And I really appreciate having buttons in a different position. Again, the more we can change the look and the feel and the position and the groupings of the buttons, the easier it is to remember what they do when driving. The 3 encoders on the front, I mean, that's something that we've become very accustomed to on our steering wheels. I like the way they have them in a nice row of 3 there, so it's really easy for me to remember that they do traction control, ABS, and maybe engine mapping 1, 2, 3, just like that. And the detent on those buttons is a very strong click. There's a good distance between each click as well, making it very easy for me to find each position with no error, no accidental double clicks or any of that kind of stuff at all. Now when I talk about the magnetic paddle shifters, it almost comes back to the construction, because the first thing that I notice when I'm actually using them is they are very, very rigid. Not just the bodies, but the arms and those forged carbon paddle shifters also. The whole thing, it's very snappy. It's a little bit on the loud side, I would even say, but it doesn't disturb me. I run in headphones, but you definitely feel it. Sometimes I'm not even sure, do I feel it or hear it or a little of both, but they are great feeling paddle shifters. It's not just the release of the magnet, it's also the stopping point and everything. Again, rigid, snappy, strong, and feels really great in my hand while driving. I don't use the floppy bottoms much. So some people use them for a clutch. I like doing the clutch on the floor with my pedal set. So it's something that I confess I don't use much in sim racing, and I'll usually have it mapped to something else, like in rally racing. And believe it or not, I would use this wheel for rally racing. I might have it for an emergency brake. Sometimes it's a little easier and faster to do that than a physical handbrake. And that works out nice. A good amount of travel, so that if you are using it for a clutch paddle or a handbrake, that you would have a good amount of variation in that amount of throw on those lower paddles. So that is good, and they also feel real rigid, even though we're not putting them to the same stress as the actual paddle shifters. You're a little bit easier on those floppy type. Now for part 2 of the driving, I think I'm going to leave a lot of that for mostly things that are on the visual aspects. So we're going to talk about the changes we can make. But real quick, I do want to touch upon this display. And just, I think it is just so cool the way it rotates while I'm driving the car. And you will see it's a little teeny bit notchy. It doesn't move as fast as I can turn the wheel. So it's always playing a little bit of catch up. And it honestly, I mean, I don't even use an on the steering wheel display very much. I mean, all that information is generally speaking on top of our screen when we're out there driving in a sim, but it does make the wheel look extra cool. And there are things that I will use from time to time. I will use things like lap times, or I will use that speedometer instead of what I see on the screen because I know where it is on the wheel, and the fact that it stays centered or stays rotated horizontally makes it so that when I do look down, it's a lot easier to see the information that I want. And on top of that, it's a very, very clear display that is easy to read. It's bright, it's got great colors, and the fact that it's round makes it a truly unique display. I can't think of that many portal type displays that I've ever seen in my entire lifetime. So with that, it's probably time to talk about some of the programming and some of the things that you can do within the Moza Pit House software. And this wheel is a lot like the others as far as the LEDs and the button colors, but we do have this very unique display to talk about and all the options that we have there. So within the Pit House software, there are a lot of things we can do to control the wheel itself. A lot of things we've covered on previous wheels, so I'm not going to go into detail at all. But here's all the main normal functions: paddle shifter, calibration, how the joysticks work, things like that. So we don't really have to go into that. Same thing goes with the RPM LEDs. So we can change all these colors one by one. We can change the blinking color, so when you get to the rev limit maximum, it can also be affected there as well. And then lastly, we also have our flag conditions. And you can see I put a custom one here for when we're on pit lane, so it'll look a little different than my current rev strip does. Now, the new thing is all the dashboard settings. So right here, the Pit House software came with all of these different layouts. And I can load any of them here just by pressing them here in the software. Or again, I can use that touch screen to scroll between them. Now, the one downside of the ones they gave me, and I like them, they're all beautiful, except they all had kilometers per hour. Now, I did find it really easy because you can customize your own dashes, which is really awesome. So what I did was I took their dash, this gold one here, so here's their version, which is kilometers per hour, and then I made a duplicate, and I was able to change the settings. So you can actually edit the instrument itself, and then you can change all of these parameters. So all I did was went in here and changed the configuration from kilometers per hour to miles per hour, but I could have changed any of the colors on the wheel while I was at it. So for example, we can change all the colors. I'm just going to really quickly, so I can make all of these buttons blue. Let's just say I wanted to make a wheel that was really inspired by this blue pattern, or the highlights of the steering wheel itself. So I'm going to go ahead and put some blue on all the buttons here. So now I'm just going total color scheme. And so the original red dial looked something like that. And so I had this cool red and blue thing going. But I actually been working on customizing it. So all I did was take that original red dial and I actually started making changes to it. So I just one by one went through the colors, and you can see I now have this blue and kind of lighter blue. I put a Simpit logo, which didn't come out very good. I'm gonna have to work on the logo itself. And I still haven't changed the word fuel, but right here, the fuel's in blue, in red. I'm gonna move it up so you can see it. And I can actually just change that color. So let's see, we'll make that blue to match the rest of the scheme. And I just need to make sure that I have that centered above the actual fuel on that, and then I can save this, and when I do that, it will actually update. You can see its resources are syncing, and now if I use that instrument, you can see the correction was made, and that the fuel is now above gear. Or I could go back in and let's just play again real quick to show you kind of some of what you could do. But like the Simpit logo, which this used to be a fuel can, so but you can see I can do anything I want with this Simpit logo, and if I made a better background, it might look cooler than that. What makes this wheel so unique to me is not just the rotating display, not just the fact that it's a round bezel on the display, not just the color LEDs, but the way you can do an entire theme, everything from the display to the buttons to the rev strip to match. And that is something that I just have never had that much control over steering wheel, and it definitely keeps that word vision when you're talking about the Vision GS steering wheel. So let's get back to driving. As a reviewer, one of the things that I always appreciate, especially when it comes to aesthetics, is the fact that beauty is really in the eye of the beholder. I mean, I might like one color scheme and somebody might look at that color scheme and think, oh, that's terrible. And other people might like something and I might not think it's very good looking. So again, it's really important. And a lot of times when we're selecting steering wheels for our rigs, sometimes it's about the type of wheel, sometimes it's about the functionality, and sometimes it's just because it looks cool. With all the ability to program all of these LED buttons, so we've got 8 different buttons that we can play with the color. I can make the color of the rev strip be conventional, something maybe yellow, orange, and red, or I can go out on a limb and do something in exciting colors that match the theme of my steering wheel. And that is a really cool touch that allows anyone to make this steering wheel look exactly how they want it to do. And if you really want to take the time, you could do the same thing with the dashboard. I started playing with a blue design for the Simpit just to be able to see how hard it was, and it would take some time to do it. It takes some artistic ability, but it's totally doable. And again, it's just one step further that we've never seen before, where you can tailor everything about this wheel to match the aesthetic appeal that really makes you feel good about it. So included in that is just the way this wheel is so clean. We're talking about the rev strip across the top. We're talking about the way that bezel goes around that center monitor, and the shape of that forged carbon front plate is just spectacular and artistic, and it just adds to it being able to get the color combination to make it just right. And once I did get it just right, it was time to put some stickers on it. So it was a matter of making it so not only did I have this button white for communications, for example, but I have a little microphone logo on it, just so in case I forget that that's my talk button, I have the easy reminder. Or I have these two here mapped in blue, and that's because those are the things that I do on the fly in the car with the menus, and I use that in conjunction with the blue rotaries. And so everything when it comes to on-the-fly adjustments is blue on the wheel, making it very easy to look down and be like, yeah, that button. And then some of the other ones aren't necessarily labeled in colors that I necessarily need, but we have stickers that are letting me know, hey, that's your flash button. Some cars don't even have headlights. Or that's your tear-off button. Some cars don't even have helmets exposed to the elements. And then lastly, on top of that, I'm going to say it again, I'm still fascinated by the gyro-locked or gyro-centered display. The fact that that thing spins when I look down and it's just like it's always vertical, and that is something that has always annoyed me about displays on steering wheels is, what about when you're making a turn? It's turned sideways, I can't even read it, and yet this one has solved that problem in a way that looks so techy, so futuristic, and just makes this a one-of-a-kind steering wheel. Well, that sure is a lot to cover when talking about just a single steering wheel. So in case you missed anything, I'm going to go ahead and cover all the highlights with the good, the not so good, and the bottom line, starting off with, looks great. Rotating display. Great combination of buttons and encoders. Very comfortable steering wheel. Programmable color buttons and rev stripe. Great construction. NRG style quick release. Customizable displays. Works outside of the Moza ecosystem with the Moza hub. Easy software. Extra buttons on the back. Change the displays on the fly. And now on to the not so good, and I will say I had to work a little extra hard on this one because there wasn't a lot to critique on this steering wheel, but let's start off with it is a little bit pricey. The gyro rotating screen is a little bit slow and lags behind your movement slightly. Butterfly style rim only. And now on to the bottom line. What a great looking futuristic design. I've been to so many car shows. I usually look at concept cars, and the steering wheel in particular looks like something that you would never use. It's so futuristic, it looks like it's out of a movie from 1,000 years from now. This looks futuristic. This looks spectacular, but it's still highly functional and makes a very, very good sim racing wheel. This thing just looks awesome, with that center screen and that hard bezel giving it a super classy look. I also love being able to change the overall look of the wheel. So we're talking about the backlit buttons, we're talking about the rev stripe, and now we're talking about the additional display. And if you were really artistic, you could make a display that was any color scheme, any layout that you could possibly imagine, it seems, and make it match your buttons and rev stripe. So again, if you're really into blue and purple or red and green or whatever your color pattern is, you're going to be able to make the perfect wheel for you, and that is really cool. But beyond that, it came down to the overall comfort and functionality. The wheel is comfortable. I used it for many, many hours and enjoyed every minute of it. And top of that, I had so many controls at my fingertips. It was just a really highly functional wheel. And even though I'm not really big at looking at the display, it's kind of nice having it on there. Even though you don't necessarily need a rev strip because you have it inside of the car, it's kind of nice having it there, just kind of flashing in your peripheral, reminding you it's time to shift. Now at $750, we are getting into the expensive range of sim wheels, especially when you consider other wheels from Moza, for example, the KS steering wheel coming in at $280, or even like the Sim Magic GT Neo coming in at $289. Both of those wheels are awesome and they're packed full of features. But this wheel is packed full of features, and on top of that, it is one of the most spectacular looking steering wheels that I've ever used, and its quality and construction and the way the buttons click, the magnetic shifters, everything about it would really compare to a wheel of a much higher price. So this wheel really is the pinnacle of Moza Racing and what they've been doing over the last few years. So coming onto the scene and offering a variety of bases, a variety of steering wheels, a variety of sim racing products across the board, and each and every time they're just striving higher and higher, giving you not only more performance, more futuristic design, but also coming in with that KS steering wheel and keeping things affordable. So giving you everything from the basement to the penthouse, and just a lot of new options for sim racers out there. So great job by Moza, and I just love this wheel and can't wait to drive it some more. So I hope you've enjoyed this review. Be sure to give it a thumbs up if you did. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can find out when our next video comes out. And thank you for hanging out with me. This is the Simpit. I'm Sean Cole, and I'll see you on the track.